the people, by the people. For the culture.
Peace, Jumbo. Welcome to the Vital Hoops podcast, right here on Black Power Media Reloaded. My name is Fernando Cardenas, aka International XB. I am your host. This is episode 71. Our guest today is an organizer. I met this brother not too long ago, but I greatly appreciate what he does. The comrade was born in Berlin, Germany, and he will be joining us live from Hamburg, Germany. He's an environmental engineer. He studied at universities in Germany as well as in Zimbabwe. He engages with issues of social and environmental justice, resources exploitation, and class struggle. He's been advocating against racism and neocolonialism on the continent of Africa and in the diaspora. He works with the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, and he is also part of a great organization in Germany called Africa United Sports Club. Africa United Sports Club is an African-centered and Pan-Africanist sports club in Hamburg, Germany, where our guest is currently and where he serves as a volunteer board member and a basketball coach. Our guest today is Ruben Castro. Ruben Castro, welcome to the Vital Hoops podcast, comrade. How you doing?
Thanks, bro, for having me. Now I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I appreciate you taking the time, and especially now that I know, you came back from Havana. So I appreciate you taking the time. I know you jet lagged and everything, but it's all good. We're here, man.
Yeah, man.
I want to talk to you about, your trip, to Cuba and all that. But before we get into that, can you please let the listeners know a little bit about you, and your journey a little bit and how you got into, basketball, Pan-Africanism and all of that.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the first son of a German mother and a Cuban dad. Both of them studied in the Soviet Union. That's how they got to know each other. And then I grew up in Berlin, and the capital of Germany, in Neukölln. This is a working class and migrant area of Berlin. And yeah, so growing up there, of course, there was lots of racism and stigmatization of exactly that area as a problem area, or those words of parallel society. Yeah, nowadays it's a very much gentrified area. But already as a young child, I came to basketball through my mom. And because there was a basketball club nearby my primary school, so I practiced basketball like almost every day and increasingly every day since I was 8 years old. And later on, I also played in the National Youth League, which was introduced in those years for youth under 16 and later on under 19.
Okay.
Yeah, and I continued until winning 2 times the Northern German U20 championship.
Nice. Under 20. So that's when you were like 18, 19?
Yeah, I
Okay.
would say I was good back then. I was
Nice.
pretty good.
Nice.
I was always also a very athletic player. I played positions 2 to 4. But that also brought up some knee issues, all the jumping and
Yeah.
dunking. So
That's how it is,
yeah,
man.
and I was also ambitioned, but maybe not ambitioned enough to follow up even more in it.
Okay.
And when I was 18, I moved to a new city, to Hamburg. And yeah, there I came in contact with more and more also Black organizers and people organizing for social justice and yeah, liberation.
Okay.
So that's how I came to Pan-Africanism then.
Okay. So you would say you started getting your political education around that time when you got 18, 19?
Actually, it was already earlier. So
Okay.
I started with political organizing when I was 15, I think, around
Okay.
15, 14.
In Berlin.
Yeah, in Berlin. So I tried to get into leftist, anti-fascist organizing spaces,
Mm-hmm.
and learned a lot also through that,
Right, right.
because of the racism, the blatant racism that we experienced, and also on the larger social level, the whole atmosphere. And at the same time, I always felt the injustice of capitalism as we experienced it in our homes with struggles around money. And so
Absolutely,
I
absolutely.
learned also at home through my dad about the Cuban Revolution,
Mm-hmm.
and by myself about the Black Panther Party and so on, and started to study on my own. So I always knew that there is an alternative to capitalism, especially to capitalism in its imperialist form as it is here in Europe, expressed through racism against marginalized communities, and particularly African people. And I was also lucky to get to know some activists back then that are part of the Uhuru, or that were part of the Uhuru movement,
Okay.
organizing around Garveyism and African internationalism.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so I participated in campaigns for example, justice for Uri Jallo. Uri
Yeah.
Jallo was a young African man who was assassinated by the police in Germany, in Eastern Germany,
Mm.
in the city of Dessau, who was burned in a police cell while he was being tied with his arms and legs.
Mm.
And so, yeah, through protests and so on, later on, I also met people in Hamburg who are active with Africa United Sports Club, the organization that I'm also part of the leadership of
Mm.
now. And I joined the work study circle of the All African People's Revolutionary Party.
Okay.
So this gave me the opportunity later on to even be politically active in African countries too, like last winter, winter in terms of European time,
Yeah.
where I was able to participate in a campaign against the sending of police troops to Haiti,
Mm.
um, and doing education around the Haitian Revolution and its role in global African and Black history.
Yeah, appreciate that, man. And and shout out to the Uhuru movement. Got a couple comrades connected. Shout out to the All African People Revolutionary Party as well. Man, I salute, man. I want to salute you, man. First of all, for the work that you're doing and that you've been doing, I think we know as organizers that, political education is primary, it's extremely important, but a lot of us, don't get exposed that early, you know what I'm saying? So it's great to see that you were able to, at a young age, 15, already be starting to be involved in all of that. Salute for that. And
How was it
sometimes
for you? When did you start with political organizing?
I started a little bit later. See, my situation as far as my parents is similar. Like I was, my father was Afro-Cuban, my mother was French, and I was born in Paris. That's where they met, but I grew up in Havana. So I left. Parents went to Cuba when I was young. I grew up in Havana, and and then I went to school in the U.S. So also pretty young. Like I went to high school in the U.S. So same thing, just understanding, being able to live in different places and seeing our people, seeing African people always being at the bottom of society, no matter where you travel, made me understand there was something that I wanted to change. That bothered me also, you know what I'm saying? Also, obviously, beginning to understand what imperialism was about, but started reading when I was also pretty young, thanks to my brother, started reading Malcolm, but I still wouldn't say I really had my politics right until I got to like maybe college. I started really getting a little more serious. And even then, I didn't really have totally my politics right. There was still some things missing, you know what I mean? So yeah,
It's a process. It's a lifelong
yeah, yeah, no
struggle.
doubt, no doubt. It's definitely a process, but I would definitely say I really didn't get my politics really correct until my 30s, really. You know what I'm saying? And now I'm almost in my 40s. So, but yeah, it's definitely been a process. I've always had like some type of what I would call conscious, you know what I mean? I wasn't like, out here doing, but I still, and still to this day, obviously, like you said, we still were always learning. But yeah, I wanted to definitely salute you for that, man. what was it like growing up with a, Afro-Cuban father? And like you said, what was the education like with him? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So
In
I
in Germany, right? You grew up, yeah, in Berlin.
yeah, I grew up in Berlin,
Mm,
and so my parents separated when I was still young.
mm,
But my father was always also there for me. And what he did to me and my siblings was to teach us about pride in the first place, pride in being Cuban and having a Cuban identity, even though we didn't grow up there,
mm,
even though we hardly spoke the language. I learned Spanish at school, in primary school already.
uh-huh.
Um, but in the first place, it was always the identity question, which is extremely important because you know how racism is in a country like Germany.
Yeah.
If you're not white, then you're not really German.
Mm,
So it becomes important for you to also know where you're from, to know where your roots are.
mm.
So it became clear to me pretty early that Cuba is my identity. And then in the next step, also, of course, that Africa is part of my identity and a very important part of my identity.
That's what I was gonna ask you. How did it
Because
get from that to,
Yeah, because I mean, part of the Cuban identity is already having an African identity.
okay.
And then in the next step, as Afro-Cubans,
Mhm.
um, it's very important to appreciate your own Blackness and also your Africanness
Yeah,
and to get back to that. But I would say that this was rather a process that I had to do myself later on.
no doubt, no doubt. Yeah, yeah, appreciate that. So you recently came back from Cuba, man, and I always tell the comrades when they ask me, the situation in Cuba is tough, it's a difficult one, you know. How did you see things over there, man? And how long when was the last time you were back home, and how did you see your family, the people in general,
Yeah. So I love being in Cuba and
no doubt.
spending time with the family there
Mm,
because it's just a special occasion, a special opportunity that I have
mm,
when I am there in Havana.
mm.
My family lives in different parts of the city, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to travel for a long time of my growing up because we didn't have the money for those expensive flights to get there from Europe. So I had to find my own way as an adult to get to know my uncles and my cousins and so on. So this time I was there for a month, and the last time was almost 3 years ago, where I was also there for a month together with my brother.
Okay.
And it's always also very sad because you have people that pass away during that time. You have people that you rarely see, but that are really part of your heart, that you love, that are just not there the next, or that you don't know, of whom you don't know if they'll still be around
That's right.
the next time.
That's right.
But yeah, so generally, this is one part. And then because I'm a socialist, it's also, and I believe that the world needs a fundamental change. Being in Cuba is always like a reality check
Mm,
each time. And the reality is just that the path to a better society is not like a one-way street. It's difficult. And this fight for a new society, in this fight, there are great obstacles along the way. Like you feel it, just the global dominance of hard currencies. It's not something that is just in Cuba this way, but in all our countries and actually in the whole global South. But the closer you get to North America or to Europe, the harder you feel it. And yeah, so this thing with the US dollar or MLSA, the international currencies,
yeah.
and also the imperialist propaganda, politically speaking, and the consumerism
Yeah.
that is targeted directly at Cuba,
Mm,
just as the economic blockade really has its effect on the country,
yeah.
while the focus, for example, uh, on the foreign currencies through tourism
Mhm.
and the role of family separations and remittances, and of course make make challenges pretty great, pretty big, adding up to the inflation of the national currency, making prices higher for even basic goods.
Yeah.
And yeah, also the energy infrastructure. I mean,
Yeah, a lot of power cuts these days, right?
a lot of power cuts, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, there are challenges that have profound impacts on people's lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. And discussions with my family always help me to understand better how the everyday life really is.
Yeah.
And yeah, this time I was even lucky to connect with people whom I didn't know before through you.
Yeah.
And to meet them. Shout out to Sekou,
Sekou, the brother
former
Sekou.
member of Anónimo Consejo,
Absolutely.
Cuban hip hop group that, yeah.
Legendary. Anónimo
Legendary.
Consejo. Listen, for those of you who don't know, yeah, Sekou is definitely my brother and comrade. You know, he's a very legendary MC from Cuba out of the group Anónimo Consejo, which is one of the most important groups in Cuban hip hop history. And they're pretty much definitely one of the groups, but maybe the group to come up with the term like hip hop revolución. You know, when they started, you know, talking about hip hop revolución, speaking about the resistance within Cuba, but also the specific, you know, needs and the realities of Africans within Cuba, you know, of Afro-Cubans and what they were going through also, you know, specifically as Black people in Cuba. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, shout out to Sekou without a doubt. You also linked up with the brother Norberto, right? Norberto Mesa.
Yes, also.
Norberto Mesa is a brother that's also extremely important. You know, he's been in the anti-racist fight in Cuba for many years, you know, and he's a brother that I have a lot of respect for. You know, he started his organization La Cofradía de la Negritud, and you know, he's hands-on for sure, man. Shout out to Norberto. For those who don't know, I also work with Habana Negra. We have a platform that we do, you know, in Spanish, and Norberto is actually our next guest. So he'll be on Habana Negra real soon. But yeah, you know, the situation right now in Cuba is very, very tough. I had gone back to Cuba to live actually with my wife and children. We went back in 2017, I believe. And then during COVID, shit got real complicated, brother.
Yeah.
And you know, having two younger children, it was difficult. You know, we had to stand in line to get food, and sometimes, you know, we didn't have enough oil. We didn't have like it was really tough. So we were like, listen, we got to find a way to make a move, you know, to try to make a move. And I had one of my good friends that I played pro with back in the day that was living here in Rennes, in France, in Rennes, where I'm at now. Yeah, and he was like, listen, I'm playing with a small ball club over here. I'm coaching, you know, come through. You can coach the kids. You can hoop with us. So I ended up here, but we ended up here during COVID. But yeah, I haven't been able to go back, man, and it's difficult because, like you said, I feel just like you. Like it's just like every time we go back home, it feels good, you know, to breathe the air, to see the family. It's just a breath of fresh air, even though the situation is hard for them over there, we know. But going back is always a joy, even in the hard times. I haven't been able to go back in a few years now, but hopefully I'll be able to be back soon. Yeah, shout out to all the comrades over there. Shout out to my family, you know, friends, everybody, man. I think, you know, another thing is that, you know, in Cuba, like I said, obviously, you know, as an anti-imperialist, you know, we salute, you know, the resistance. And but I think it's always one thing that's always important for me to mention is also that, you know, we can't forget the voices of our people there as Afro-Cubans, as Africans within Cuba, you know, that there is also a need for us to speak about what's going on with them over there. And I always try to, you know, incorporate when I'm working with the anti-racist movement over there. I always try to incorporate Pan-Africanism in order for everybody to understand it from a global perspective. You know, understanding that, you know, as African people, you know, our struggles are connected. You know, and it's important for us to view things, you know, globally.
Let me add up on this.
Please do, please do.
So this time and also last time, I found out that actually my dad has a cousin who was one of the revolutionaries, African revolutionaries that participated in the Cuban Revolution. He wrote a book about 1912 about the massacre against
The Partido Independiente de Color.
Exactly. His name is Silvio Castro, so my name is not only related to a Spanish name, to Fidel or things like that, but there are other revolutionaries, African revolutionaries, that always made big contributions. He published a book, Herencia Africana en América Latina, in 2016, which I have here at home. So I tried to find more of his books this time, but unfortunately they weren't available. But yeah, it's always important to learn more about particularly the role and history and current reality of African people in Cuba.
Absolutely.
and the larger Caribbean and the whole diaspora, of course.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because, one thing that it's been crazy to me, like, the Partido Independiente de Color, the Independent Party of Color, was the first Black political party in the Western Hemisphere. And they were massacred in 1912, between the Cuban government at that time and the US government played a part in it. And it's crazy to me that, that history is pretty much erased on a global level, because I've spoken to lots of historians, African historians, Black historians, Pan-Africanist historians that don't necessarily even know about this history right there. And we're talking about, this is something important. It's the first Black political party, not the first Black political party in Cuba, the first Black political party outside of Africa. You understand what I'm saying? And there's no history on it. So not only it's not being taught enough in Cuba, but it's not being taught enough around the world. So we definitely need to bring up our ancestors. Evaristo Estenos and Pedro Bonet, the founders of the Independent Party of Color, of 1912, as much as possible. And yeah, so definitely, my comrade Vlad and I, we wrote an article on the Partido Independiente de Color on Afropic magazine, which is, our online magazine here at Black Power Media. So definitely, everybody, I'm gonna put the link to that in the description. Everybody can go get that. It's free. You download the magazine, you can check it out, Afropic magazine, on the second issue. But yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up, comrade. And sometimes, a lot of the times, I always encourage, all of our brothers and sisters and comrades, when you go to Cuba, you see, usually when you go to Cuba with an organization, with a revolutionary organization, you're gonna come through, you're gonna be welcomed by government institutions in Cuba, which is fine. But I always encourage you to go try to link up with people who are doing grassroots work in Cuba that are not necessarily linked to the government. Black folks that are working, anti-racist work that they're doing within the community, etc., and also get different perspectives, because there's a lot of work being done that's not necessarily always tied directly to the government. And yeah, so I definitely encourage people to do that. So definitely, anybody watching this also, and you're going to Cuba, definitely link up, hit us up, hit up the comrade Ruben, hit me up, and would gladly, advise you to, link up with some comrades over there for sure. I want to get into, there's a few directions we could take, but I would love for you to talk a little bit about Africa United, the organizations that you're a part of, that you're one of the leaders over there. Can you please talk to me about that? How did that start? How did you get involved with that? And let everybody know what it is about, right? Because it's Africa United Sports Club, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, Africa United Sports Club, or short Africa United, is a community-based and registered non-profit sports organization. So sports in Germany is not organized around schools or anything like that, but it's a separate part. So it was founded in 2015 by, let's say, first generation African migrants and some more or less renowned Black sports professionals raised or living in Germany participated in founding the organization. So I'd like to mention former Kung Fu world champion Emmanuel Betancourt, who also has his own martial arts gym here based in Hamburg, and the former football pros Otto Addo and Marcia Marchand. Otto Addo also trained the Ghanaian national team for a shorter period and is still active as a football trainer here.
Okay.
And yeah, so since 2015, Africa United Sports Club organizes various programs such as free tutoring for Black school kids, basics of martial arts for the whole community. This is a program that we started while the Black Lives Matter movement came up to do something that is really, that is more direct
You
and
can
that
say it,
builds
man.
more consciousness than just going to the streets and shouting
Yeah.
the same thing the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And also mental self-defense. We did programs for football, for handball, dancing. We are trying to connect sports also to hip hop culture. With basketball, that is, there's a direct connection, which is very obvious. So we're trying to include that into our empowerment programs. And we are all in all focused mainly on African youth, African children, and also their families. So we also have programs for Black women, and we strive to build contacts with other organizations internationally that are doing similar work, that are doing cultural projects, educational projects, children's programs, youth and women's organizations. And so since 2019, now already 5 years ago, we are having the first African basketball team for children in the history of at least Germany. I'm not sure about Europe.
Salute. Hey, it might be, I think it might be Europe, brother. I'm pretty sure it's Europe.
Yeah, so we are participating in the league for children under 12 with a mixed team. So it's girls and boys.
Okay.
And so the first group that started in 2019, some of them are now 15 already, 15,
Wow.
getting to 16.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just a great experience to participate there, to build our own spaces, because this is really part of the reason why Africa United was also founded, to have our own self-determined structures on the ground that are able to reach the community and to open up more opportunities for our own people.
Yeah.
And what we also do is we commemorate special days in African global history, such as Pan-African Women's Day and African Liberation Day. But we decided to particularly focus on the Day of the African Child, which is every year, 16th of June, remembering the Soweto massacre in so-called South Africa, Azania. And we do our main event normally around this day. But this year we're having a sports event this month to celebrate sports, joy, and familyhood, but also to commemorate and to educate on the colonial division of Africa, which was formally introduced exactly this month, 140 years ago, when the Berlin Conference started.
Absolutely.
So we're having this sports event. If you are in Hamburg, then come around.
That's right.
Or anywhere nearby.
Yeah, if you're close by also, I advise you to get there for sure, because the work that they're doing is serious. And thank you for speaking about the conference. The Berlin Conference is something that we must never forget, and understand how the oppressor, they just, carved up, the motherland and split it for themselves and for their own interests. They literally sat around a table and cut this up. And now, still to this day, it's difficult for some of us to understand that the importance of African people, of us uniting, as African people, when we were literally divided by our enemy, So that's why, all this micro-nationalism can be dangerous and very unproductive for us, and the importance of us being African first, above anything. But like I said, shout out to your organization, man. What y'all doing over there is very important work. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the importance of sports? And you're a basketball coach, so specifically basketball, for African youth. And the second thing I wanted to ask you was also, have you gotten any pushback for being a a sports club that is centered on African children, have you encountered any difficulties as far as that?
Yeah. So regarding the last question, I would say organizing means also to face problems and to face people and structures that don't want you. But luckily, we were able so far to navigate well through it. And the opposition was also not too hard. And I think that this is for several reasons. First, because the existence of racism in sports, particularly of racism against Black people, is well known.
Mm-hmm.
So attacking Black people doing sports is like something that even white people wouldn't do at the moment. Then another factor is also that we are a mixture between a so-called migrant self-organization and a sports club. And migrant self-organizations are something that are nowadays in Europe legally are accepted. So you're not able to say no, you can't organize as people of African descent or things like that.
Yeah.
And hopefully it stays like that and we can extend our work to reach more people. But of course, our focus is never only on the enemy, but on our own people and on bringing ourselves forward. So we think that sports is just one of many important tools for empowerment. And then basketball is just one of the examples of sports. It could be any sport. And what we learn through sports, particularly through, for example, team sports, are important values that we need as African people, like standing to our own roots, like saying proudly, "We are Africa United," shouting, "Africa United, Africa United," and having the huddle also, "Africa United." All those things, just knowing that you're African, that African culture and history is part of your own identity, that it makes you stronger, that it enriches you, is one of the things. And general sports values like friendship, helpfulness, being there for each other, respect, commitment, not only to your own goals, but to your team, to your broader team collective goals, modesty, healthy lifestyle and exercising regularly, discipline, self-control, motivation for all the tasks that lay ahead. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I think sports are extremely important, and they can be used in that way that you're using. Unfortunately, they also use it. The oppressor also uses it. You know what I mean? And in their own way, obviously. But I think I've loved basketball forever, ever since I was a little kid as well. And I think one of the things that I got in basketball that I was able to kind of translate to movement work is learning to be, how they say, you got to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable, right? In basketball, when you're working out, when you're going through tough workouts and things like that, learning to be comfortable in that, in a way where you're uncomfortable. And that's something that I think we can take to our work, to our struggle, you know what I mean? Because a lot of people are also afraid because we understand that, it's gonna be uncomfortable. Revolution, there's a lot of things are gonna be uncomfortable, before it gets to where we want it to be, where we need it to be. You know what I'm saying? And that's why a lot of people are either afraid or sometimes not willing to struggle, because it's difficult and it's uncomfortable, but we have to understand what our goal is, and the fact that we're looking at it collectively also, which is a thing that we do in sports as well. Collectively, we can't win individually. You know what I'm saying? So I would, so I would definitely put that in there, man. But I appreciate your answer. You also work with the All African People Revolutionary Party, and you mentioned them a little bit earlier. How did you link up with them? And there's a chapter in Hamburg, or do you work with the one in Where is it? It's Berlin.
Yeah, so the All African People's Revolutionary Party is an international organization. And here in Germany, we have a work study circle, the Maji Maji Work Study Circle, meeting online. So we are all over Germany. For example, in Berlin at the moment, there's no one participating. But we are a few people here in Hamburg. And yeah, so we are doing political education around revolutionary Pan-Africanism and trying to build alliances also amongst our own community, but also with other movements and organizations here. And yeah, this is about the AAPRP.
No doubt. I appreciate that. Within Africa United, how do you all deal with political education, or do you?
Yeah, there's the famous quote by Kwame Nkrumah saying that how is it? Practice without theory is blind, and
theory without practice
is empty.
Yeah, absolutely.
So of course both are important, but you can approach this question from the two sides. Either you always have to first either focus on developing the practice, and the practice means changing the material conditions of our people, changing the reality, just as Cabral pointed it out. And the other way is focusing first on theory, on education. And the result is also that we reach different people with those two approaches. So the approach of Africa United Sports Club is to focus on the material reality, on everyday life, and from there on to develop consciousness, to open up spaces for questions, for questioning ourselves, questioning our identity, our struggles, our problems as African people globally. So there are no restrictions. You can participate in Africa United as long as you're willing to do something positive for your own community, for African people. And that is how we are trying to win people to get active, because we don't want the barrier that you first have to agree to many different points and to an ideology and so on, as it is, for example, with the party. It's like the idea is to build an organization that is able to reach the masses as they are.
Absolutely. And have them, start getting the knowledge and the ideology as they're a part of the. Yeah. I appreciate that, man. That's really great, especially when we're dealing with children, and youth. That's absolutely necessary, man. No, like I said, shout out to what y'all doing over there. Again, hopefully we're gonna be able to do some work together, my brother.
Yes, please do it. Let's do it.
Let's do it, man.
We just have to find out the way how exactly we'll do it, but
we're gonna be working on it. Y'all gonna be hearing more from the comrade Ruben and all of that. So this is something special.
I wanted also to, I forgot it earlier, because you can approach sports and basketball, for example, from different sides. And when you asked me about problems with other people that maybe are not, that don't agree with Africa United's approach, it came to my mind that actually there are also people in our own communities that are hesitant to this approach.
Right.
Because of the racist stigmatization of Black people, particularly in white majority countries, concerning sports and, for example, basketball. It's obvious. But we believe that when we say by any means necessary, as Malcolm X said, then it doesn't limit us to only organizing through basketball, organizing through dancing or singing. Because of course it's true and proven that our people are excellent in no matter what they do. And we shouldn't fall into the trap of running away from shadows, but face the issue. And this means that we need unity on all spheres of life, in work, in education, family, and in leisure time. And it also means that Black people's excellence is not enough. we need power. So power means building organizations, building structures, getting organized where we are.
That's right.
And in today's world, basketball and the culture around it is still very much controlled, not by us, but by white monopoly capital. So the benefits of Black pros that we have today should become institutionalized and distributed, used for our own people, for our own interests. And just as in any other area of social life, yeah, that's our approach. And we also think that, for example, we shouldn't think of basketball and sports generally as something that is only about being pro, becoming pro. We are very proud that, for example, two of the kids that we trained are nowadays one of the biggest talents here in youth basketball in Hamburg.
Okay.
But at the same time, we are also proud of those many more former kids that play basketball, who practice sports just for fun. Definitely. Because it's also a right to just practice sports because you like it.
That's right.
And that develop social organizing skills, pride, identity, and consciousness through sports.
Yeah.
And we know that we have to combat racism in so many different spheres. Like it comes from fans. That's very known. Like all those insults. Also inside of when you practice sports yourself as an athlete, with double standards that you have to struggle with. There are always high expectations. This jumping high thing or running fast thing. Yeah. We can use it as an empowering tool when we are really fast or jump high. So I used to jump high. So basketball was really empowering for me. But at the same time, it's a struggle to make, to fight those wrong pictures that are painted about our people. And we need popular sports. We need more popular sports, because even competitive sports, pro sport, is based, when it comes to the highest level, all this is based, all those success stories are based on popular sports. So the broad masses need access to sports, no matter if on the African continent or in the diaspora. And we in the diaspora also have the responsibility to build structures that are able one day to support building up sports organizations on the ground, connect this to educational activities on the continent, and not to participate in this thing about using the African masses to just handpick some of the greatest talents to play in European and North American professional leagues. Because this exactly is what imperialism and racism does. We need access. We need to build our own institutions, organizations, and we should never limit ourselves to certain sports, to certain roles, to certain positions. For example, when it comes to coaching, when it comes to coaching, when it comes to really deciding about the organizations, and you look up like, who are the players, who are those really doing the work, and who are those controlling and benefiting from sports, then you have to look to those large companies, sports companies, advertising companies doing the advertising, selling, for example, the sports wear brands.
The sponsorships,
and you'll see.
Absolutely.
There's a long way to go also in sports.
Yeah, without a doubt, man. I appreciate that, and you mentioned earlier the importance of us, not just Black excellence, but the importance of us, having power, and, I remembered, Dr. John Henry Clark, who said, being Black and beautiful means nothing unless we're Black and powerful. You know what I'm saying? And so that's exactly what what you're talking about. And it's important for us to understand that, for our people to really understand that, you know what I mean? But yeah, man, I would love for you to give everybody a book recommendation, man. You know, we like to do this here at the Vital Hoops podcast because we understand that, you know, unfortunately these days, some of our people are only getting information from short clips, you know, like Instagram, TikTok, all of this. But we understand that at some point, it's important for us to get back to the books, you know, in order to get that knowledge. So if you have a book or two, a couple books that you'd like to recommend, man, that would be great.
Yeah, we must support the reading culture. So shout out also to the comrades in Zambia from the Popular Library Project Zambia. I was able to get to know people from the Socialist Party Zambia and
Okay.
also the MST from Brazil doing great work around agroecology over there, literacy campaigns. So never forget that it's our own responsibility to learn and to practice, to put into practice what we learn about our own history and realities. So one of the basic works that I will always recommend is, of course, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa
Walter
and
Rodney.
Groundings with My Brothers and Sisters too, by Walter Rodney.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the personally, for me, my favorite book is the Autobiography of Assata Shakur. Also check out not only, yes,
Got it back there.
not only short clips on TikTok and Instagram and so on, but you can find a documentary done by Afro-Cuban filmmaker Gloria Rolando.
Yes.
Assata Shakur, also on 1912, what we mentioned earlier. So check her work out too.
Yeah, definitely. Gloria Rolando, you know, shout out to her and the work she does. For those of you who don't know, she's an Afro-Cuban filmmaker, you know, and she's great. She's amazing. I do want to mention, you know, you said, you know, the autobiography of Assata Shakur, which I have back there, you know, and much respect to Assata. And also, you know, on the Rise Up Morning Show right here on Black Power Media, we had the comrade, our elder, Jalil Muntaqim, you know, much respect to Jalil Muntaqim. He said, you know, you got the sister Assata back there, but you don't have my book. So I want to shout his book out, you know, Jalil Muntaqim's book, We Are Our Own Liberators. So that's the one I'm gonna recommend for today, you know, Jalil Muntaqim, We Are Our Own Liberators. Much respect to all of our freedom fighters, you know, the Panthers, you know, Black Liberation Army, and you know everybody in the struggle and all of the Pan-Africanist revolutionary organizations, you know, around the world.
Absolutely, Ashe. And there's also, this month is month of Black consciousness. Some of us may not know, but so it originated from Brazil. And we today pay tribute to all our heroes and sheroes from Zumbi in Brazil to Steve Biko in Azania,
That's
from
right.
Carlota Lukumi, who you also have in the background there.
Carlota Lukumi, that's right, with Guerrilla
Carlota,
Republic Cuba. Carlota Lukumi is another extremely important
absolutely.
story for us, you know, Afro-Cubans. And you know, it's out of Matanzas, you know, my family is actually from Matanzas, you know.
Wow.
And so yeah, definitely.
We have so many. Yeah, Shantwa from Ghana,
That's
Eric
right.
Man, Dedan Kimati, Nani of the Maroons.
Mao. That's right, brother. Now, definitely it goes on and on. And this is another thing, you know, we have to make sure that our people know that we know our Black and African radical history. You know, this is very important, you know, all of our victories, you know, all of these victories that our people, you know, have been through in the struggle, because sometimes, you know, people who are new, who are just getting to learn about this, you know, sometimes they feel like, you know, um, they don't see this. It's not out there. You know, the only things that we learned are from a European perspective, usually, you know, and understanding our history from our own perspective is super important, you know, in order for us to keep the struggle alive, you know, because it is still going on. And the struggle will continue until we win, without a doubt.
Yeah, absolutely.
No doubt, my brother. So yeah, so I wanted to applaud you again, and please let everybody know where they can find you, man. You know, socials, you know, your organization, socials, website, whatever y'all have going on in these days, in the upcoming months, you know, where how people can reach out or whatever. Please let everybody know.
Yeah, you find all information on Africa United Sports Club on www.afuk.org. www.africaunited-sports.de. Most of the information is in German, and if something is translated into English, French, Portuguese, then you can see it in the title. Actually, we are publishing a lot in other colonial languages because the community in Germany is also very diverse regarding their backgrounds. And on Instagram at Africa United .SC. Yeah, check us out and come around for the All African People's Revolutionary Party. The website is aaprp-intl.org. Join a work-study circle and get organized. Join an organization fighting for African liberation and unification, such as the LPU, the Ligue Pan-Africaine, Umoja, or the AAPRP, and any local organization. If you don't find the right organization already existing, then just start your own.
That's right.
Yeah, let's do the work.
That's right. I appreciate that. Shout out to the FTP movement, in Kalanji Changa down in Atlanta. Definitely there are a lot of great organizations, doing the work. So we want to salute all of those, specifically Revolutionary Pan-Africanist Organization. And like the comrade said, make sure you join one. Make sure you're a part of it. Make sure you're on the bright side of the barricade. And we keep doing the work. And thank you, comrade. We'll definitely hear from you again here at the Vital Hoops podcast, because what you do definitely embodies what this podcast is about. And that's it. Struggle continues.
Struggle continues, and keep up the great work also with Black Power Media.
Appreciate that. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
All right. That was episode number 71 of the Vital Hoops podcast, right here on Black Power Media. We give thanks to the brother and comrade Ruben Castro. Big shout out to Africa United Sports Club, and to all of you for watching and or listening. Please like, share, subscribe. Make sure you support Black Power Media, support the Vital Hoops podcast, and make sure you do check out the links down in the description and see what's going on. We need to connect on a global level as Pan-Africanists and support each other, because as we support each other, we are supporting ourselves. So like I said, thank you for rocking with the Vital Hoops podcast, for the people, by the people, for the culture. Uhuru.